everyone, I wanted to just sit down quickly and chat to you about kind of online privacy when it comes to children and when it comes to what I choose to share and not share and stuff, because I've had a lot more questions than usual about it. I am completely up for talking about it, but when I'm trying to reply to like comments and Instagram stuff, I just don't feel like I can do as good a job because it's not a really simple thing. This isn't me saying you should do this, you shouldn't do this. I don't know if I'm right, I don't know fully how I feel about everything, I still am thinking about it. So I currently, and the reason I'm getting questions is because I am not showing her face. I will share photographs occasionally with her where you can't see her face, so you can maybe see the rest of her but she's sort of looking away, or there's something in the way of her face, or I've just put a little squiggle over her face. It didn't used to always be this way. There's still videos on my channel where you can see her. The very first thing I posted when I announced I'd had my baby was just a video of her face. I didn't have a clear idea of personally how I felt and where I stood before having her, which is why it sort of gradually changed. So I always knew that I didn't want to be a family vlogger, although I'm a complete hypocrite because there's a few family vloggers that I watch and I really enjoy, but I still think even that can be done. There's levels, right, of how it can be done, like really invasively versus a gentler way to do it. A lot of this I feel like probably comes back to personality types and just me and my like deep core beliefs and worries and personal experiences. I worry about social media and the internet and AI and face tracking and all this kind of stuff. All these sort of dystopian things that feel very, ouch, that feel very over there and like something that maybe I don't have to worry about right now, but you know, I do worry about it. Just to give you maybe a little bit more context with me as well, and just like a personal experience. When I was a kid, I had a situation involving the police and potential threats of abduction. My school had to be aware of it, and I had to wear, for a little while, a necklace with a button on it, like an alert, for if anything happened, and I had to be very aware. I don't think I've ever mentioned that before, but it's no wonder I struggle with anxiety, right? Just to add some context, there's that. I am an anxious sort of worrier kind of person, and I just noticed that when I was posting photos of her, it didn't feel good. And I know that might sound really weird and you might think, well, just don't post then, but it was a conflicting feeling because you know, it's a beautiful photograph and I love it and it brings me so much happiness, and I'd be, you know, laying in bed looking at it while she's asleep next to me and stuff and sharing it with family, and I'm like, that's so beautiful, I love this image. And there's joy in sharing images and beautiful moments with people. I love photography, it's, you know, photography and film is my life, so I just naturally would think, I want to share this with you because I feel like I have a little bond with you and I like sharing stuff with you. But when I would share it, everything would be positive, but I still had this uncomfortable feeling. I identified that for me, that niggling feeling is when she's smiling at me and I'm like sneakily capturing it with my phone and she doesn't understand what's happening and she doesn't understand that I'm then sharing that with thousands of people. It's this innocence and like obliviousness to what's going on, and it just didn't feel right. It just felt really weird, so I just thought, I'm not gonna do that anymore. And I love sharing life. For me, sharing my life is it's just celebrating life. It's just sort of sharing the beauty and happiness and ups and downs of life, and that's what it's all about for me. So I want to share my life and she's a big part of that, but she's not mine, you know, to share. So I've just had to find a boundary. I still really want to share the joy of having a baby, my life as a mum, so I just tried to find a way that I could still share joyful moments with you and get across a feel of her age and what's happening and, like, you know, a happy moment and the vibes of the moment without pointing a camera in her face while I'm taking loads of photos of her for me and for photo albums and to show my family. If I think this is a moment I'd like to put online, we'll try and look in the environment and find a way that I can photograph her but it be a bit more private, you know, so like flower over her face or There's lots of different ways you can do it. You can always just stick an emoji over their face, and sometimes I've then changed my mind and gone back and taken things down. So someone said, she's so cute, I'm just curious, why did you stop sharing her face? And I, trying to summarize it, said, I became more aware of creeps online. I didn't want to assume she would want herself shared publicly. I also felt uneasy knowing she didn't understand what I was doing, and I don't think social media is good for us and the world, so I didn't want her all over it. Someone said, but in that case, creeps can do something with these kind of photos too. I said, I'm not so much talking about creeps photoshopping pictures necessarily. Anyone can do that with anything these days if that's their intention. But we can make our kids more or less of a target because of the kinds of images we share. A face versus the back of someone's head or just a fully clothed body. A face is personal, identifiable, and the eyes are the window to the soul, and to me it makes a huge difference. I used to follow someone who, when she posted photos of her children, she would show everything except just their eyes. And I, before having children, thought, that's really weird, what's all that about? So I just can't see their eyeballs. What am I gonna do with, you know, what sneaky thing can I do just from seeing their eyes? I didn't get it, but now I get it. I'm just assuming this is why she did that. I might be wrong, but for me, the eyes are the window to the soul. Just not having her little innocent face like looking into the camera, to me that is something that personally makes all the difference. I mean, I second guess sharing even her in her cat jumper, you know. I put thought into that as well, and I feel like I know what people are going to say because I am thinking it as well, that following my logic to its ultimate conclusion that she can't consent, you just shouldn't share anything, and that you're probably right. I do think it's different, the fact that I've got a big following. Not particularly big, but you know, I've got thousands of people that like my photographs, and I think that's very different from a private account where family and friends follow, or just a public account where I've got like 10 followers. It does feel different, but I would say that doesn't make you any less vulnerable if, you know, you're hashtagging certain things and location tagging things and posting photos where you can see where your kids go to school and stuff. I thought more and more about how I feel personally about social media. I considered what I feel is happening to society because of it. I watched the documentary The Social Dilemma. I've always been interested in this kind of thing, and I always feel a tiny bit hypocritical because I use social media for my job, but I don't feel like it's good for us. But here I am. And if I don't feel like it's overall good for the world, I don't want baby all over it, you know. Boundaries with family and posting images online can be really tricky. So say you are someone who posts absolutely nothing of your children online, not even their names, but you've got a grandma who is really proud of her grandbabies and wants to post those photos to show her friends and things. It can be awkward trying to talk about that, but I feel personally like it should be the status quo that everyone asks the parents, how do you feel about this, before posting. But the world we're in, it's just kind of like, it feels like the inverse, like the norm is post first, ask questions later. My family have been really supportive and lovely. They ask me now about posting photos, and they have got some photos on their private Facebooks. I just ask that they don't post everything. They ask me before they post stuff, and I've always been very protective of my family as well, because I know plenty of people who don't even have as many people following them online as me, but I know friends who are on social media who have stalkers through social media and certain forums that have just become obsessed with them, and some of them don't talk about it because if you talk about it, it can make it worse. But that's real, you know, once that happens, it can be really hard to shake off. So I've always been really cautious about that. Maybe again, it all comes back to me as a kid, feeling sort of hunted, so I'm paranoid about it, but not too paranoid, I think. So I've always said to my mum, don't add people you don't know on Facebook, and make sure that, you know, your settings are private, and make sure you don't put where you live and things. There's a line we all draw, intentionally or not, between sharing and enjoying all the beauty of life and protecting ourselves from unwanted attention. I think I just spat a little bit there, sorry. That line is always there in all walks of and moments of life. I think we just consider it some more than others. you know, some people might say, well, you can't even go outside then because there's creeps and they might look at your child and photograph your child, and you can't even wear shoes then because there's people who'd, you know, like that. There's a moving line that we all exist with, where between like reasonable enjoying of life and protecting ourselves from things. And unlike going outside and wearing shoes, Instagram is not important. I have a close friends list on Instagram, so this is an option I don't know if many of you use, but I think it's great. You can make a list of close friends, and then when you post something on your story, for example, you can choose to just share with those close friends. So I do post more things on there sometimes to share with family and friends rather than like texting it to everyone. If there's a little moment I want to share with friends, then I will do that. I'm just going to read some stuff off the internet real quick because this words it much better than me. There are a number of factors you need to consider before posting photos of your children online. With the advent of social media, two things have changed. First, social media is all pervasive. You can't ignore it or put it to one side. It can be incredibly difficult to delete content once it's been posted. Multiple likes and shares could send a picture of your child halfway around the world to people you don't know, and you'll never be able to remove it. These risks don't stop when children grow up and are able to look after themselves. This is a relatively new phenomena, but there's been speculation that the oversharing of parents who post sensitive information such as children's full names, birth dates, place of birth, alongside their photographs could enable future fraudsters to steal their identities. The New Yorker reported one study estimating that by 2030, sharenting could be responsible for nearly 2/3 of all identity fraud cases affecting today's juniors. Posting photos of your kids will create a digital footprint, a kind of electronic paper trail. Someday your preschoolers will grow up and they might not want documentation of their diaper days hanging out online for their friends to find. We can minimise consequences with precautions like using privacy settings, limiting the audience of posts, turn off GPS, geolocation type things, consider using nicknames for your children or not sharing their full names, don't use personally identifiable information such as where you live, school signs, road signs. I'll share more stuff about this down the bottom because I could be reading this forever. This is all not to say I'm right, you're wrong, you should do this or anything. I don't know that I'm doing the exact right thing. This is all just something I think we need to consider because the world is so different from when I was young, and we're really an experiment, you know. This is a new era of people growing up with their lives documented and documenting our own lives. I don't know, it's just worrying, isn't it? it's like beautiful in so many ways, but it's also like a bit scary. I wanted to also touch on sharing breastfeeding because I feel like a natural response to a lot of this would be, well, don't share photos with kids and your boobs out and stuff like that, which I completely understand. I personally love breastfeeding. I'm one of them annoying people, though no shame to formula people at all. I love formula, grateful it exists. I'm passionate about it and about supporting people if I can. The rates of breastfeeding in certain parts of the world are really low, and that would be fine if it was entirely through choice or medical reasons. But when it comes to like a lack of support or education or social stigma, they're the things I think we can help with, normal people, by sharing it online. I would say personally, I feel like it's pretty normal to see people breastfeeding on social media now. I've had a few crappy comments about it, but you know, nothing to write home about. I think the next frontier and the most important one is it's got to be normal in everyday life. It's not just when you open Instagram you see some beautifully styled breastfeeding photo shoot or whatever. You need to see mums breastfeeding in coffee shops, walking along the street, in a park, because it's all very good and all seeing it on social media, but walking out your front door and breastfeeding in public is completely different. I feed out and about, and that doesn't involve my boobs hanging out for everyone to see. People really don't see a lot. But if you're concerned about that, obviously you can get things to cover you up. But I feel like I'm making more of a difference when I do that. I hope that if a mum walks past me and sees me feeding, she might feel a bit more at ease if that's something she wants to do. Or anyone just seeing it and just being like, that's normal, you know, just desensitizing people to it so it's not such a weird thing. Because it's not a weird thing, you know. I know it's a cliche comparison to draw, but I have been in this situation, and it is weird when you're sat opposite like a shop with women in their underwear, like, come and buy this sexy underwear, and you're breastfeeding your baby, and people are double taking at you breastfeeding the baby. There's of course a way to respectfully share it and not so respectfully. And I mentioned a lot about creepy people and all these different risks and things, but for me the main thing really just comes back to that uncomfortable feeling I had of the fact she didn't understand what was going on. That's the number one for me. That's the main thing. What you share and how much you share, I think, is just as important as if you share or don't share at all. I've got a friend, Melanie, who hasn't even shared her baby's name. I hadn't considered it as good as her before having a baby, so I'm like doing that now. But I didn't know like exactly how I'd feel as well. A lot of it has been like an emotional protective feeling that I've just sort of worked with and tried to figure out. I think that's all I gotta say. I hope I got myself across okay. Again, I just want to reiterate, this is not me saying I've got it all figured out. I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I'm second guessing everything. I still, I don't know, this is just something I'm thinking about and aware of. And I think that's the main thing I want to get across. It's just something to think about. The last thing I want to do is for this to be like an argument or anyone thinking they're better than anyone, because that does not help kids at all. We just need this to be a normal thing to have a conversation about, right? And we can all have different boundaries and different things we're comfortable with. Thanks for listening. It's probably been quite long. Bye. A big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. I'm reading your names out because I feel like I keep messing it up lately. Thank you to Heather Lilly and Laura M.
Thank you. Woohoo!
Thank you to Willowy Wings and Jessica Baldock.
Woo!
Thank you Hannah Robinson and Danielle Weatherall.
Yeah!
Thank you to Lauren Thank you Lauren Erica and Emma Outland.
Yay!
Thank you Brandy Wine and Milda.
Thank you!
Alex says thank you as well.
You're the best!